Well, for any of us who like to pretend that we're writers, completing a novel is sort of a quest for the Holy Grail. To an author, finishing a novel represents a lot of struggle, stress, persistence, and ultimately, hopefully, some insight as well, not only for the authors, but maybe even for the reader. Who,
Yep.
Hey, who knows, right?
Yep.
You know, I wrote a novel. Did I ever tell you that?
No.
I wrote a novel in my 20s and my early 30s and into my 40s now. Spent a couple years writing a novel in my late 20s and early 30s, and it was not a very good novel. But you know, even a bad novel, even an unpublished novel,
takes a lot of work.
Takes a lot of work, and you get some insights out of that.
Yep.
But what we're going to be talking about is not an unpublished nor a bad novel.
Okay. It's a good novel.
It's a good novel. 5 things I learned writing a novel that I wished I knew when I was a CEO is the name of an article from John R. Bell, who is, you guessed it, a former CEO, a global strategist, and most recently, a published novelist. This particular article appeared first in the CEO Afterlife website, and we republished it in last week's Valentine's Day issue of the Quality Digest newsletter because we loved it so much.
Yeah.
Published it on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, last year, Bell completed and then published his first novel, The Circumstantial Enemy. Now, I haven't read the book, but it's getting really terrific reviews on Amazon. I read the Amazon reviews.
Yeah.
There's a few dozen reviews on there. It can't all be his friends and family.
Right.
And yeah, there's really good reviews for it. And this was an 8-year journey for Bell to bring the book to fruition. And to do that, he needed to rely on many of the traits that made him such a successful business person. And with that said, he also learned a lot along the way, and many of those lessons are things that really would have benefited him, as he says, in his former career as a boss at a consumer packaged goods company. So let's run through these 5 points that he's talking about. We'll show them on the screen, and I'll kind of explain a little bit about what's going on here, what he learned from writing his book. The first one was understand your audience. He learned the importance of that, because a good author really needs to realize what, say, her readers want and need. If she can't deliver, she won't be a very successful author. Likewise, the CEO needs to appreciate what customers, employees, and shareholders need and strike the right balance when those things inevitably come into conflict. You know they're gonna. Right. I mean, you know, there's some things you can't just square sometimes, and you know, you're gonna have to figure out, well, is this about our customers, is it about our employees, is it about our shareholders, other stakeholders, who's really involved here? So you gotta understand that. The second thing he learned was what his characters wanted, right? I mean, all good 3-dimensional characters, even the ones that aren't always central to the action, have motivations that cause them to do what it is that they do. And as much as possible, CEOs should strive to invest the necessary time and energy to learn about the intrinsic hopes and needs of the company's employees. That's a really important one. The third one here, which we can look at, is he learned to kind of take a breather at the crossroads of indecision. An author is generally going to face writer's block. It happens to everybody. It happens to all of us.
Sure.
And you're going to have writer's block even when you're writing a 1,000-word column. You're going to have writer's block sometimes. And when he does, it's often beneficial to let the work, sit for a little while, maybe days or even weeks if you have that much time, before you pick it back up. Now, CEOs, of course, have a pretty powerful motivation, I think we can say, to make quick decisions. But the occasional breather might provide deeper and maybe really valuable insights, depending on what the situation is and what decisions you have to make and when. Taking a breather and looking at it and letting it breathe a bit can really be valuable. The fourth thing is he learned to trust his readers. And this is one I can speak to very much, having written a book. Again, not a good one, and not an unpublished one, but this is one that you're gonna deal with, not so much in a short form, but in a long form. Bob Seger called it "what to leave in and what to leave out" in one of his songs. Because as a writer, you never want to leave your audience saying, "What?" I'm not understanding. So you want to be clear. But there's also this thing, you want to let them figure it out for themselves. When no reader wants to read something where it's all just served up on a platter, you let them work it out and work through the ramifications of what your characters and your story are doing. That's a hard thing. It's a very fine line, again, between what to leave in and what to leave out. And from the perspective of a CEO, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, you want your people to learn and to grow on their own. You trusted them, when you hired them. You trusted that they had the intellect to figure things out, right?
Right.
So if you trusted them then, well, why would you give them everything now? You know, I mean, let them figure things out for themselves. It's really important both for readers and for employees. And the fifth and final thing you learned was that you want to regard yesterday's prose as kind of a small victory. A novel is 100,000 or more words generally, and no writer that's ever lived or ever is going to live, believe me, is ever going to pick the perfect 100,000 words in the perfect sequence. I mean, any book you ever want to name, there's little imperfections in there that are just inevitable. But you know, you can't let some mythical ideal interfere with the pride that you take in your effort, in your progress. You may not write the great American novel, and you may not lead your company to the Fortune 500, but you can take time to celebrate small successes anyway. If you can't enjoy the journey, why are you doing it? I mean, if you can't enjoy the process and learn something from writing a book or from leading a company, why are you even doing it? I mean, you're not going to get the benefit. The people that you're leading or the readers that you're sharing your vision with aren't going to get anything out of that. So, you know, enjoy it a little bit. Celebrate those small successes. I mean, like I say, the greatest book ever written had imperfections. The worst book ever written had a few things here or there that were valuable, that were okay.
What was your book about?
Oh, it was about a girl and a guy and a relationship. And
yeah, I've been there, done that.
It was. I was in my 20s. Come on. But in any event, really good article. And I haven't read John Bell's book, but I will recommend it just based on what the Amazon review said. It looks like a really interesting book, though.
All right.